Alright, so I'm doing a plush collection video where I'm showing off a majority of my custom plushes. I'm first going to talk about my PvZ plushes and then my just miscellaneous custom plushes. I don't really know how I want to do this, so I might as well get through this as fast as humanly possible. Let's first start off the list with a peashooter. The patterns I used for this plush were actually based off of somebody else's patterns, and I will link the patterns in the link in the description. I've used this peashooter head base pattern for a majority of my peashooter plushes, but I have actually moved on from using this peashooter head base plush pattern into my own plush pattern. Let's put you here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is Snow Pea. This is my own original peashooter head base pattern. It uses basically the same leaf and the same stem. For some reason, Snow Pea's a lot more shorter than my other peashooter customs. He's got icicles on the back of his head. I prefer 3D icicles on the back of his head instead of just like a freaking mohawk. And he's also grumpy. Next up is Scaredy Shroom. I like basically everything about this plushie except for the cap. I don't really like the cap. It's a little too circular for my liking. You can also bend his snoot down like this. Next up on the list is Magnet Shroom. Not really going in any set order. I'm not going in the order in which I made them, because most of my older plushies are actually from Heroes. He's got this hole in the back of the magnet here. Probably gotta fix that. It's still really good. Next up is Magnifying Grass. I like the gem part about it, but I don't really like the leaves. They're a bit too floppy. And he kind of just looks like he has legs and he'll just scamper around wherever he wants. Next up we have Shadow Peashooter. This plushie is alright, I guess. I don't really have much to say about him. Next up we have Umbrella Leaf. The flower up here is a bit rushed, and the leaves are very floppy and can just fold up like this, and now Umbrella Leaf just looks like a freaking asparagus. Next up is Blover. This plushie has 3 leaves instead of 4. The face is kind of creepy, and I kind of don't like stuffed leaves. Should have just made them flat. Alright. Next up is Spikeweed. He's got a piece of cardboard giving him some shape. Don't really like the eyes. I don't like the glued eyes, and also some of the stitching on the spikes is kind of weird. Look at this one. What was I thinking? Next up is Rotobega. This, I think, is one of the first plushes where I've used this weird little shooter thing. I think Scaredy Shroom also has this small shooter thing. Outside of the shooter thing, the propeller could be done a little better. I don't know what to say about Rotobega. It's Rotobega. Next up is Lightning Reed. This form of Lightning Reed is actually based off of the Garden Warfare 2 Lightning Reed. One where it's got like a big head. I like that design, and I made this Lightning Reed. It looks pretty good. Kinda don't like how his neck's really floppy though. Like really floppy. Alright, next up is this one. This might actually be one of my favorite plushes alongside Snoopy, and another one we might get to later. This plushie looks really good. The leaves here are actually bendable through the power of pipe cleaners. It's a really good looking plush. Now, this is kind of a sad one. This is Garlic. I actually made this for my dad because he wanted a garlic. Derpy looking garlic. And it is a derpy looking garlic. Don't really like it in particular. I think I could have done better. The next one's a pretty cool one. This is Fire Pea. Or Fire Peashooter. Basically everything about this plush is red and orange. I mostly use scrap orange fabric for the fire bit of Fire Pea. It turned out relatively solid. Next one's a big one. This is Pea Pod. Holy crap, this was a nightmare to make. This was an absolute nightmare to make. These holes back here aren't actually patched up. Could take the stuffing out. But holy crap. Holy freaking crap. This plushie is huge. I'm actually kind of glad I made this. Next up is Cabbage Pult. This is a pretty good plushie I made. The bottom here isn't actually sewn shut. He's also got a pult, you know, the pult part of Cabbage Pult links in. Motherfucking. He's also got a cabbage that he can also lob at the zombies. However, it's not really that effective. Like, you need to plop this down and then do this, and then it'll go flying. I gotta go get that now. Hold on. This is an old jack-o'-lantern plush. It's very, very poorly made, and this is a more appealing new jack-o'-lantern. Fun fact, I accidentally created a better jack-o'-lantern plush. Like a better jack-o'-lantern plush base when trying to make Pepper Pult. Next up on this list is Peanut. This plushie's alright, I guess. Don't know what it is about this plush that I don't like. I just don't like it for some reason. Next up on this list is a pretty good plushie in my book. This is Melon Polt. I glued the details on this guy, and I actually made the Polt somewhat sturdy by making it 2 layers of fabric instead of just Cabbage Polt's 1 layer of fabric, and that's it. And he's additionally got a melon which he can lob at the zombies, kind of like Cabbage Polt. Next up on the list was one of my favorites for the longest time. This is Plantern. For some reason, I freaking adore this plush. Like, this isn't, like, my #1 favorite plushie. I think the 2 plushes that took that spot were Red Stinger and Snowpea. But I still adore this guy. The next 2 plushes are incredibly old and incredibly damaged plushies. I actually think I purposely didn't show them because I'm kind of ashamed of the condition they're in. This is a teal and orange bowling bulb. These 2 just look so freaking sad. This one looks super ridiculously sad. Like, this orange one I'm kinda comfortable with showing. I might even keep this orange one. But for the teal one, nah mate, I'm sorry. You're getting scrapped. Like, there's just loose thread all over. This plush is just falling apart right here. I don't want to look at this thing. You know what? You're going behind everyone. Goodbye. Next up on the list is Winter Melon. I almost said Melon Polt. Let me actually position this guy so I can show him off. This is Winter Melon. He looks really freaking good. And one detail some of you may notice is that Winter Melon is actually more bigger than Melon Polt. And that's because Winter Melon was my first take on, like, the 2 Melon Polts. Like, the first take. And honestly, it looks ridiculously freaking good. He's missing a teal melon for him to lob, but I think he's still pretty good. Next up on the list is Doom Shroom. There's not really much to say about this guy other than his mouth is falling off. Next up on the list is Reincarnation. This plushie looks incredibly good. I made this as a gift for my mom, and this looks really freaking good. Well, except for some elements like the stem, the leaves, and the godforsaken frickin' face. Next up is Wingnut. This is an incredibly old plushie. His eyes, I think his pupils are actually pins. For a simplified plushie, he's pretty alright. Might even remake this guy, make him better than he already is. Next up is Sweet Pea. This plushie looks really freaking good. The details, the frickin' wrapper on the back of his head, everything looks really freaking good. funny story, actually. I made this plushie specifically for a white elephant, and then immediately took it back. And what makes this even more funny is that I had to make another Sweet Pea plush for my cousin because he wanted this thing. He wanted this thing with a burning passion. And I had to make a second Sweet Pea. I'll show you a few photos I took before I gave it to my cousin. Oh my god. Next up is sunflower seed. I'm not very fond of sunflower seed. I don't know what it is about sunflower seed that I don't like. I just don't like it. Next up is Grapes of Wrath. This is just a bunch of balls sewn together with a stick. This plushie's actually the main reason why I'm making this entire video in the first place.
I saw your Grapes of Wrath plush. I was not able to comment on the video. That shit was peak. It looked really good.
Oh shit.
It was. I would recommend doing a plush collection. I want to see some of the other stuff that you've made.
Next up, we got a Pear Pal. This is one of 7 Pear Pals. I think this is the first one I made, alongside this random one, this one I made for my mom, this random one, and this orange one. I did make a 7th one, but they belong in the category of custom characters, OCs, or characters that don't really belong in the Plants vs. Zombies category. Now we're moving on to the category of OC plushes and miscellaneous character custom plushes that aren't Plants vs. Zombies related. And I figured I'd talk about these because why not? There isn't really a whole ton of them compared to Plants vs. Zombies. Next up on the list, basically kickstarting the OC character or miscellaneous characters, is the aforementioned 7th Pear Pal. I envision it to be like a variant of the Pear Pal species. This is the Asian Pear Pal. It's based off of an actual fruit dubbed the Asian pear. It's kind of looks like an apple. In my headcanon, the Asian Pear Pal would like launch its leaves at the zombies, sort of like a shuriken almost. But I don't really like this design as much as I used to. Like, I just think it looks kind of racist. I might actually remake this guy. You know what? You're going behind Grapes of Wrath. Oh wait, frick, I forgot. This isn't actually an OC character, this is Vampire Flower. I mostly tried to simplify its design to a sunflower like in Plants vs. Zombies 2, but I didn't really like it. You're going back here. Alright, next up is another OC plant. This is the Belladonna. I envision this to be a shadow plant that works like Hypno Shroom. It basically possesses a zombie that eats it, basically. And when shadowed up, it can possess a zombie that's 4 tiles in front of it, and it can regenerate its head after possessing a zombie. This is a decrepit peashooter doll based off of one of my many failed attempts at trying to create my own peashooter base that I actually liked. And if you go ahead and remove all of the stuffing from this dude, hold on a second, he actually has a heart in his head. Next up on this list is one of the oldest plushes that I straight up abandoned and then came back to later when I made like a dozen of these Plants vs. Zombies plushes, is a yellow Among Us crewmate plush based off of Witchcrafty's plush patterns for the Among Us. And you want to know something that's even funnier? Is that the visor was just the last thing I needed to add to this plush to fully complete it. And when I finished the visor, it was just straight up freaking crooked. Next up is another old plushie. This is a Terraria slime, however you say it. It's just a freaking ball. Next up is a cat from Battle Cats. I don't have much to... oh crap. I don't have much to say about this guy, other than I like him. He's a little goober. Next up is a really tall plushie. This is Gross Cat. Gross Cat's incredibly tall, and I use straws for the legs to make them sort of bendable and have like some form of shape. The unique face this dude has compared to the ordinary Battle Cat is actually based off of an F&F mod of all things. Next up on the list, we got this felt cube. I don't know why I made this, but I think I can sell it for $1 billion. Wink wink. Next up, we got this crappy 0, 0, 0 bomb shooter from Balloons. First off, we got this old Rush plush from Doors, and we got this new Rush plush also from Doors. This new Rush actually has this little flap on the back of his smog area or whatever, so you can actually pick him up with one hand with just 2 fingers. Okay, I need to ask you one thing. Does this look like an olive pit to you? I was trying to make an olive pit, but I accidentally made this freaking thing. Does this seriously look like a freaking olive pit to you? Like, no sane human being could look at this and say, yeah, most certainly, it is an olive pit. No, it's a brown freaking... And we got this snare doors, snare. This dude might need some explaining, but I made a potato with an eye patch. A little backstory behind this guy is that my class was rambling on about a war between potatoes and lobsters. I was a clear potato candidate. Those lobsters suck. And I made this guy because I was a potato candidate. And I never even shown this guy off to the class. Now I just have this freaking potato with an eye patch and a hat. I did lose the hat at one point, but I found it again. Next up is this creature I dub Garbage. Garbage is just a trash bag. He's filled to the brim with scrap, fabric because I produced way too much scrap fabric. Now I gotta close them. It's just a bag with a mouth. That's pretty much garbage. Next up is a squirrel from Inscription. I think the body looks really good, but the head is kind of bothering me. I don't know what it is about the head. I don't know if it's because it's sort of deformed. I don't know if it's because the ears are kind of lazily sewn on to the squirrel. I don't know if it's the eyes being placed a little too high up for my liking. Otherwise, it's a pretty good looking plush in my opinion. Alright, before I discuss the last plushie on the list, I am going to talk about some plushies I don't have with me right now, mostly because I just given them away. Okay, so one of them is the aforementioned second sweet pea, which I gave to one of my cousins, and I made a Seek plush, which I also gave to one of my cousins, and I did make an hibernating berry plushie, which I gave to my aunt, and there's this random character I made with needle felt, which I dub Willow. And now, for the last plushie to conclude my entire custom plush collection, this is the Luke the Ancient, my OC. This is one of the biggest plushies I have made, like, by far. He's got a long freaking tail, he's got long freaking legs, which use the same technique I use on the Gross Cat, and he's also got this springy neck, which I don't really like that much. And he's also got a replaceable eye, which I can replace with another eye, which I don't have with me right now. I might actually rework this guy just to make him a little more easier to control. Or maybe I might scrap this dude entirely and just rebuild him from the ground up. I don't know, just something. And with Luke the Ancient out of the way, I'm pretty sure that concludes my entire plush collection. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. This helps out a ton. And until next time, goodbye.